p.m. So, all the speakers and moderator are already here. I think we can start now.
Okay, hold on. I hope that everyone could hear me well. Okay. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Shamil Sofia Hussein. So, inshallah ta'ala, today I'll be moderating a program, an initiative from PSYCSTA regarding a career talk for psychology. And without further ado, I would first introduce the two speakers for today, our esteemed speakers. The first one is Dr. Jamila Hanum Abdul Qayyum. She is a lecturer in the Department of Psychology, IIUM. She did her degree in psychology in IIUM, her master's in clinical psychology in University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and her PhD in community health, clinical psychology in University Putra Malaysia. Dr. Jamila Hanum is also a member of the Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology, Malaysian Diabetes Educators Society, Malaysian Association for the Study of Obesity, and the member of the International Association of Islamic Psychology. So the second speaker for today is Brother Saiful Reza bin Muhammad. So he is a psychology officer at the Counseling and Career Services Center, IIUM. He completed his bachelor's degree in human sciences, IIUM, and also his master's degree in education counseling in IIUM. Currently, he is a registered counselor and also a certified counseling practitioner at the Malaysian Board of Practitioners. Okay, so I guess that we would want to listen. Oh, sorry, we would want to listen to the forum for today. So there will be 4 sessions. Each speaker would be talking for approximately 10 minutes. And I'll be introducing the questions later, inshallah. So first of all, let's start on the first part. So I was asked to also introduce a little bit about my journey in the master's degree, and how did I decide to pursue my master's studies, and what to prepare for pursuing my master's studies in terms of knowledge, attitude, habit, and mental preparation. So basically, currently I am in my final semester in the Masters of Clinical Psychology, and I'm currently doing my training in Hospital Permai Johor Bahru, inshallah. And I am currently in my hostel, so you could see the bare walls. That explains. How did I decide to pursue my master's studies? In short, it's because of my students. My students had before I was a teacher, and my students had I would say they helped me realize that clinical psychology might be an option for me. Yeah. And also what to prepare for pursuing a master's studies. Number one, I think the most important thing is sacrifices. Because when you do your uh, master's studies or even your postgraduate in general, there will be a lot of sacrifices. And number two is also mental preparation and also a very good habit. Okay, so without further ado, hold on, I need to check. Okay, so we're going to continue with the questions for the first speaker. So Dr. Jamila Hanum, I'll begin with you first. So the question is, what is the difference between a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist, and a counselor? Because many people nowadays are very confused with this role. Even in the hospital setting, for example, we have counselors, we have clinical psychologists, and we have also psychiatrists. So Dr. Jamila, you may take the floor.
Thank you so much, Sister Shamil Sofia, for allocating time to be with us today. Today is your research day?
No, today is a holiday. In Johor, holidays are on
Today.
Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Today is Friday, so it's holiday. So you are working also, even in on
uh,
holiday. Mhm. Okay.
well, yeah, that's life. Okay.
And thank you so much to PsycSTA for inviting me. And I think that today we have a very close group. We only have about nine participants, including us. Okay, that is interesting. So to answer the question, the first questions on the differences between psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, registered counselor, and also therapists. Yeah, we have counselor here. My good friend, brother Saiful Reza. Yeah, I should call him Tuan Saiful Reza now. Yeah, because he is the director of our CCSC. So I'm honored to share the screen with him. I think this is the first time I'm sharing the same floor as a panelist. Yeah. So I'm very excited. So I would like to share my screen. I have it's not prepared, but I have one image to be shared, and let me show to you the image that I have found out. Okay, are you able to see the image?
Yes.
Yeah, the
Yes.
image
Oh,
on
hold
the
on.
differences between certified or registered counselor, clinical psychologist, and psychiatrist. And I would like to acknowledge the source that I have taken. This is from Iman Psychology, and Iman Psychology is currently doing his master with us, Master of Human Sciences in Psychology, specialization clinical and counseling. So basically, he is a junior of Sister Shamil Sofia. Okay, so looking at the screen now, I can see that Brother Aiman has beautifully illustrated the differences between a counselor, clinical psychologist, and a psychiatrist. And I would like to add on that a psychiatrist has a medical degree. Yes, psychiatrist has a medical degree. In other words, they are a medical doctor. Yeah, they have a bachelor degree in medicine, and after that they pursue their specialization in psychiatry, so they become a specialist and they are called a psychiatrist. Yeah, whereas clinical psychologist, the background is psychology. So normally, clinical psychology started with a bachelor degree in psychology. Yeah, usually or normally started with a bachelor degree in psychology, and then they do masters in clinical psychology. Yeah, and undergoing clinical placement. Uh, and for counselor in Malaysia, normally counselor are being trained in education faculty. Yeah, and normally some teachers who would like to specialize in counseling also, they will learn about counseling. Normally counseling being a counselor are being trained under the faculty of education. Yeah, and as you can see on the screen, in terms of the activities done by these three different profession. Yeah, I will talk about therapies later on lah. Based on what has been shown on the screen, we can see that psychiatrists and clinical psychologists can do clinical assessment and diagnosis of mental disorder. Of course, psychiatrists can do diagnosis other than mental disorder because they are medical doctor. So they have been trained to also diagnose other physical illnesses as well. However, clinical psychologists only being trained to conduct clinical assessment and make diagnosis of mental disorder. However, a counselor, they are not being trained to do clinical assessment and diagnosis to rule out and rule in a diagnosis formally, yeah, of mental disorder. And as we can see on the screen, another activities being conducted by psychiatrists, they can prescribe medication as part of the treatment. So that is the role of a medical doctor. Yeah, one of the treatment by a medical doctor is giving medication. So psychiatrists also, the first line treatment for them is giving medication. Whereas clinical psychologists in Malaysia and also counselor in Malaysia, we are not a medical doctor, therefore we cannot provide medication. But in US, in certain states, yeah, in some of the states in the United States of America, clinical psychologists there are being trained to prescribe medication such as anxiolytic, yeah, antidepressant, things such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, selective norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. Some of the clinical psychologists in the United States, yeah, in certain states in the US, can prescribe that because they have been trained to do so. However, not in Asia. Not in Asia, yeah. So, in clinical psychologists and counselors in Asia, we do not prescribe medication. We do not prescribe vitamins. Okay, so if you see clinical psychologists doing that, then probably you need to reconsider your options to continue seeing him or her. And if we go by the traditional roles, yeah, if we go by the traditional roles, psychiatrists and clinical psychologists are the one who treat mental disorder in a hospital setting. Yeah, because certified counselor or registered counselor, they are not being trained to assess and also to provide intervention for patients with mental disorder. However, in Malaysia, the setting is different. We also have counselor in hospitals, even in psychiatric, or most of them are in psychiatric department. Yeah, therefore they receive on job training to also assist psychiatrists, to assist clinical psychologists in treating mental disorder. So there are a lot of debates on this, but I think today this is not the platform for us to discuss on that. Yeah. And in terms of conducting psychotherapy, it's also depend. Yeah, Brother Aiman stated that counselors are also conducting psychotherapy, but some. If we go by the traditional roles, counselor conducting counseling session. Yeah, because psychotherapy is different from counseling. So psychotherapy also use counseling techniques, but it has specific objectives. It has specific short-term and long-term goals on what to be achieved. And throughout the psychotherapy, normally we are going to conduct continuous assessment. Yeah, so that is some of the difference between psychotherapy and also counseling. So psychiatrists are also being trained to do psychotherapy. Clinical psychologists, these are the bread and butter of clinical psychologists work. And some of the counselor also, they get training to conduct psychotherapy. Yeah, so psychotherapy here, for example, the examples of psychotherapy that are famous in Malaysia is cognitive behavior therapy. So, cognitive behavior therapy is an umbrella term of treatment modality that has specific knowledge and also skills pertaining to psychoeducation in relation to mental disorders, and also knowledge and skills pertaining to cognitive intervention, and also knowledge and skills pertaining to behavioral intervention. So that is the set of or description of CBT, one type of psychotherapy. Whereas counseling session, when we talk about counseling, is a technique that we use, whether it is macro skill or micro skill type, such as we are doing reflection, we are doing mirroring, we are ensuring our posture is correct, we are ensuring that we are able to synthesize, we show empathy, we rephrase. So these are the micro skills under counseling session, and these are the bread and butter of our counselor. They are very good in doing that. Whereas in clinical psychology training and also psychiatry training, we are not as much as being trained by we are not as much as being trained as counselor. Yeah, counselor, they really learn well on how to conduct counseling session, on uh, how to perfect the counseling techniques that they use with their clients. Yeah, we use counseling as part of psychotherapy as a clinical psychologist and also as a psychiatrist. Sometimes we provide consultation only, yeah, rather than counseling session. So and when you say therapist, yeah, because there are four terminology that Sister Shamil Sophia has used previously. So who is therapist? Yeah, this is also has invited a lot of debates. Okay, normally, in comparison to counselor who have bachelor degree in counseling, clinical psychologists who have master's degree in clinical psychology, and psychiatrists who have a master's degree in medicine, specializing psychiatry, yeah, therapists, they may have certification. Yeah, they may have certification, but I have seen also a trend to have master degree in specific therapy such as mindfulness based cognitive therapy, or diploma in mindfulness cognitive behavior therapy, diploma in cognitive behavior therapy, and these people may call them as a therapist or psychotherapist. But uh, it is not like a profession such as a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, or a counselor, whereby it may be governed by certain board. Yeah, so therapists are actually people who conduct psychotherapy. So doctors, medical doctors such as psychiatrists who use psychodynamic therapy can also be called as a therapist. Clinical psychologists who conduct CBT can also call themselves as a CBT therapist. Certified counselor who are being trained in probably in REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy, they call themselves as a rational emotive behavior therapist when they do that therapy. So I hope that it clarifies some of the questions, and I don't want to take longer time lah to explain this. I would like to also to listen to my friends, brother Saiful Riza. Okay, I think I'm going to
Okay,
stop
thank
sharing.
you. Uh,
Uh-uh.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jamila. That was really true. In short, to understand, like psychiatrists, they would be prescribing medication. If you want to continue as a clinical psychologist, then you would normally be psychoeducating your patients to take their medication. So that's what I've been also doing here. Like, for example, I've been seeing a lot of child and adolescent patients where patients such as with ADHD and so on and so forth, and parents are very afraid of giving them medication. Therefore, it's your job as a clinical psychologist to help them understand how medication would help in the process of the intervention throughout. Okay, so let's continue with Brother Saiful. So the question for Brother Saiful is, besides the clinical field, what are the other fields that students can venture into, and what kind of field is in demand for psychology students?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Thank you to Sister Moderator, Sister Shamil Sophia, to also the respected panelists, my fellow friend here, Dr. Jamila Hanom. It's an honor also to be together with you as a panelist for today. A great with Dr. Jamila Hanom. Today is going to be a close group, and altogether we just have 9. Quite interesting, yes. And this under
Oh,
PSYCSTA. Okay.
I'm so sorry for intruding though. I forgot to mention we're actually on YouTube Live. So
Uh,
currently there are like 60 students or 60 viewers who are currently watching.
oh, okay.
So yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. More people to actually benefit from this webinar, inshallah. So I would love to actually share with all of you, as you know that under our office we are actually having two big portfolio. It's one about counseling and the other one with career. So speaking about career, basically our responsibility here is actually to support the career development of our students and also to support the future employment of our graduates, basically. So we engage with so many companies out there. I even feel fortunate to be given this kind of responsibility because it allows me to actually meet number of people, recruiters basically from various industries, and from that actually I learned how dynamic the work setting it is. And to be frank with all of you here, basically speaking about Malaysian, I would say we have very poor career development in terms of understanding what we mean by career. So career is not a job, and job is not a career. Okay, career is something that go beyond than just a job. It go beyond just a salary. So different people have different values. You know what? Some people they're actually looking forward to really go with what they have studied because of knowledge. But some people they don't care about that. So there's no right or wrong. Some people they just as long as I'm happy. Okay. Some people they're just looking for work-life balance. Okay lah, tak banyak duit, not become a rich people, but as long as I could purchase car, house, but most of the time I spend the time with family members. I grew my kids. Some people just focus on that. Some people, oh, I wish that I'm going to work, travel all over the world. Some people more about recognition, popularity, okay. And of course, for today, it's quite difficult also for me to actually um, to deliver what seems to be interesting out there because you know what, it could be something that you want to listen or you don't want to listen. You know, because the reality is totally different from what we understood before speaking about career. So I imagine now the viewers basically you have two different perception. Number one, who really keen about psychology related positions. Okay, so that the first one. The second one, they're okay, they're alright as long as aku ada psychology punya degree for the sake of survival, how to actually survive out there. So they don't mind to cross field. Now, the question is very good. We come back to the question. What are the other positions that really require ataupun demanding psychology in graduates? Okay. All right. To tell you the truth out there, the sad story here is actually not so many people aware about this. And speaking about HR, we need to understand first who is actually HR. In Malaysia, HR not necessarily came from the HR degree. Not necessarily. And surprisingly, I met number of HR people with high position. They're not executive level, not senior executive level. Some of them even head and director. They came from various backgrounds, and surprisingly, some of them from engineering background. They didn't study about us like psychology. They didn't study about theory of motivation. They didn't actually study about um, lifespan development, okay, personality. They didn't study about this. But that what happened in Malaysia is actually cross field. Anyone can actually join. But speaking about HR, why I highlighted by HR? Because speaking about the organization, HR is the big department who is responsible to manage talent development. So some of them may not aware about how important to have psychologists for the organization. And speaking about recruitment out there are some companies they don't believe with the degree that you have. For them, degree is just a degree. They may take you to actually go certain position, just try and error for few years to check whether you perform or not, and then they ask you to transfer to the new department to learn new skills. Okay, so we have to understand here, in general, the job market, we divide it into two categories. One, we call it very technical. The other one is services. If you go for technical related position, they really require your degree. For example, no one can be a clinical psychologist. So you really need to have a proper education, okay, clinical psychology to be clinical psychologist. You really need to be you really need to have a counseling degree at least for you to be a counselor. Then you register under Lembaga Counselor Malaysia. Okay, of course medical for sure. and some other position that really require your degree, because technically they need your skills. But when you're talking about administration, talking about services, talking about what benda-benda yang not really technical sangat, maybe 30% technical but 70% is more about your soft skills. They require, of course, your soft skills, your personality, your English competency, your interpersonal skills, your communication skill, your presentation skills. And speaking about the technical part, they're going to cover later. They believe with the short course. Okay, so that will be the bitter part. And you know what, the difficult part for the student is actually to understand the job market. Okay, something beyond than their expectation. This is my experience when we brought number of companies to the campus. Speaking about the career fair, we discovered the statistic from the human sciences is not so big. So I asked number of human sciences department, BI, they tried to get the idea why they didn't come to our career fair. And the answers from them basically, bro, most of the companies that you brought to the campus is a finance, banking related companies. It's not relevant with our company. See? Now, psychology student, tell me, who is your company? Give me 5 fingers lah. Top 5 company that going to hire psychology student based on your degree. It's very difficult. Mostly is government agencies. And for your information, ni susah nak cerita pasal kerjaya ni, but because sometimes we need to emphasize about the government policies. We need to also highlight about the weakness of the system, sometimes because of the bad economy. But currently speaking about counselors pun ataupun clinical psychologists ataupun pegawai psikologi, dia ada satu scheme, we called it S scheme. Okay, we call psychology officer, but under the psychology officer there are several categories: counselor, clinical psychologist, what else, the other one,
General, umum.
they didn't apply that. And so sad about how they actually need to actually encounter their fear, the anxiety for the big tournaments. They did their own actually. Their mental resilience is actually something that they develop by nature. So there's a sad story about it. Now, I would like to highlight, okay, allow me to share something. This is what I discovered that perhaps you may consider, okay, it's quite relevant with all of you guys, just maybe the idea is not there. All right, okay. Could you see the screen now? Okay.
Yes.
I think you're able to see all these graph, bar chart and everything. For your information, the top job ataupun the promising one, the high demanding one at this point of time is more about big data related position. It's more about data analytics. And speaking about data analytics, of course, normally they're looking forward for IT related. Normally, the second one, mathematics, and the third, nowadays there's so many companies requesting for the business study punya graduates, because all these big data and everything got to do with business. But for your information, how they're going to address this, normally they called it Python software normally. But when we ask them to actually break down the content of the Python, all about the data analytics. So basically it's all about SPSS and how to do correlation, how to check reliability. Okay, benda-benda yang sebenarnya you all belajar dekat statistik. And I asked few companies how far that they going to take their candidates for this data analytics. So requirements is actually very across companies, but there are some companies, the multinational companies, they even say our minimal requirement is quite easy, very simple. It just Excel. As long as you are competent in Excel, that's good for us. See, so being a student or future graduates, you need to study what happened in the job market. They really need somebody who love to analyze data, who are able to massage data, but they use one single term, normally Python, and some quite open, and then they considered about Excel. But when we ask about, when we tell them, we explain about the SPSS, they got no idea. Okay, so I still remember when I was a student, subjek statistik tu lah ramai tak suka, termasuklah saya kan. Kita tak nampak the significance of this subject, but after you working you discover, wow, this one is something that very very important. If you have this kind of skills, it helps you a lot. Okay, alright, so itu antaranya, but I list downkan sikit lah yang agak okay sikit. Pegawai tadbir ataupun pegawai tadbir diplomatik. Okay, so this one pun actually for your information, subject to it depends to whatever agencies that you actually apply for. If you looking forward directly under SPA pun, Allah Akbar, kita panggil dia sebenarnya PTD sangkut these days, and banyak sangkut still under contract. There are some PTD ni 6 years still contract, renew over renew over renew. Yeah. So this data analysis, as what I explained just now, researcher of course. Okay, but it depends. There are some companies memang ada R&D, some are not. Okay, you kena belajar macam mana nak join ataupun in for big companies who doing analysis. Okay, 1 minute left. Right. So you kena tahulah macam khazanah research dan sebagainya. Ada manpower tu ada. Alright, social media is a okay. HR ni, for your information, there are some company they still call it HR, but some they call it talent development. Okay, some they're using a different name, but talent development is quite common, not HR. Okay, but under HR, actually psychology students or psychology graduates itu paling relevant because at least you able to join 3 different department. One is more about recruitment because you learn on how to actually observe people, on how to assess people during the interview. The second one is more about learning and learning development. You do need analysis on certain competency that all the staff going to actually going through. Okay, and the other one is industrial relation. That one is how to handle problematic staff. At least under HR ada 3 big department that really require psychology punya graduates. But the sad story, some they know the importance of having a psychology student within the organization, some are not. Okay, now social media is quite powerful. It's become a trending. Now you can see that more and more companies really concerned about their social media. They need somebody who also competent, who able to do nice caption, who able to actually get more viewers. Even you can see that more and more companies currently they're setting up their TikTok accounts. So they need psychology student yang power juga sebenarnya on how to interact with people with the digital platform. Public relation, of course. Sales and marketing. Okay, I think we have limited time. I just read it up, but if I were to have more time, I'm going to explain more about how powerful the sales and marketing and customer service to support a big organization to double up their profit and to empower their services, basically. Now, social worker is not simply social worker that you just go for free and lillahi ta'ala. No, there are some big organization, you go for the social worker, especially the big NGO, the multinational one, actually they pay a quite high salary, but they're not based in Malaysia. They really demanding psychology graduates. But the sad story, kita kadang-kadang bila dengar social worker ni kita tak berapa sangat nak, but why not you give a try. Okay, yang kat bawah tu I just it's quite common, most of you know, but something that you don't know is actually more about the social enterprising. We are quite lucky because in Malaysia we have number of agencies. For example, Magic. Bila I tanya budak psikologi, tak ramai yang tahu Magic tu apa. With knowledge that you have actually, especially for the Bumi Putra, they love you so much. They're going to train you on how to be social entrepreneur, look at the social problem, and then try to give solution that actually make money. But they're going to train you that. Entrepreneurship ataupun entrepreneur ni doesn't mean that you need to have a product and then you sell the product. No. Actually, by looking what are the social problems that we have now, then you offer solution, could be also making money, could be also a very good career for you. Okay, nanti kita come back balik lah if I were to have more time, but okay, I think tu dulu lah, nanti I campur sikit sana ke sini sikit. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Brother Saiful. So that was really true. When there were many points that were mentioned by Brother Saiful just now, especially about the job prospects, right? But one thing that I would like to highlight, which is related to the subjects, where for psychology students, you might find statistics and psychometric properties as subjects which are really hard and you dislike. But truth be told, they are really, really important subjects, especially if you want to continue or pursue your master's in clinical psychology. Okay, so we're going to the second round. So the second question, which I'll be doing really fast, is the question is the requirement. What are the requirements needed to apply for universities that offer psychology, including recommended ones, either local or abroad? So I'm pointing out a little bit more on clinical psychology and what are the requirements. Basically, there are few universities that offer the course, but I'll be pointing out the three universities under IPTAs, or also known as IPTAs, the public universities. For UIE, for example, you need a bachelor's degree, a minimum of 3.0 CGPA. If you want to continue in University Kebangsaan Malaysia, also you need a bachelor's degree in psychology and also a minimum CGPA of 3.0. And if you want to continue clinical, it's neuropsychology, if I'm not mistaken, clinical neuropsychology, if I'm not mistaken, in USM, which is also a joint program with UPSI. Then you need to have a bachelor's degree in psychology. Minimum CGPA is 2.75. However, I have to note that my background is not from psychology. I started off with bachelor's in English language and literature. I majored in linguistics. So how did I continue to this course? Basically, I did a 1 year prerequisite subjects where I had to take 10 psychology subjects prior to entering or doing my master's. So I guess like if you are not from psychology, your background in your bachelor's degree, then you might be able to like inquire the universities that you want to enroll in and ask them what are the pathways for you to continue. Okay, so without further ado, the second question is for Dr. Jamila. So if we could know what is the flow or journey in becoming a clinical psychologist in Malaysia. Example, like do we need to acquire a special license to treat the patients, and what are the pathways? The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Sophia, and also thank you again, Brother Saiful. You have made a very good point, so that I hope that our graduates will become someone who are psychologically flexible. Yeah, psychologically flexible and um, able to give whatever that they have learned and mold it in a new way, so that they can still be beneficial to the society regardless of the name of the career or the job. And if I can share with you my experiences previously, I agree with Brother Safariza. I trained myself since I was a child uh, in the area of enterprising. I make money at the age of 10 years old, 11 years old, as a singer. So that is where I built up my confidence, and I've been paid to sing at Angkasa Puri, Malaysia, and I sell a lot of things. I sell a lot of things after graduation in sales and marketing. I sales lingerie. I sell books, and the peak. The best moment was when I was able to get around 4,000 ringgit for 10 days when I was selling books at the PWTC. What was the event? The book, the
PBAKM,
annual.
is it?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
annual
yeah,
event
yeah,
when I did my
yeah, yeah,
bachelor
true.
degree in psychology in IUM, and then I did some tuition, and yeah, at the end of my bachelor degree, I have some money in my account to sponsor me to get married. Okay, so going back to the question, yeah? the pathway to become a clinical psychologist in Malaysia. Thank you so much to Sister Sophia. You have made a very good point there. It doesn't mean that if we do not have background in psychology, we cannot end up as a clinical psychologist. No. However, not all university are very kind to give you a room or opportunity to prepare yourself doing some prerequisites before you can do your masters in clinical psychology. Yeah, not many university have that pathway. And UIA is one of the university who have that pathway whereby we give the graduates who graduate in different discipline to do 10 prerequisite courses in psychology and also one comprehensive examination. If the graduates pass that, only then they can continue their masters. Yeah, so these are the pathway for people who have no background in psychology during the bachelor degree. But the normal pathway, the normal pathway, my pathway lah, allow me to share my pathway. Yeah, and majority of my colleagues. So our degree was in bachelor degree in psychology. Yeah, regardless lah, IUM, HELP, Sunway, UKM, yeah, bachelor degree in psychology. And then we do our master in clinical psychology, but in IIUM, the name is not master in clinical psychology yet. Yeah, that new program is currently being assessed by the higher authority so that we can change our program name from Master of Human Sciences in Psychology in bracket specialization clinical and counselling. So that is the name of the program in IIUM. However, it is accredited by Malaysian Qualification Agency, and also our graduates are accepted to work in the in the industry, in the Ministry of Health. We are being accepted. Yeah, in other words, the degree, even though it is not called as a master in clinical psychology, but still we are considered as a clinical psychologist because the program structure, the study plan train students to become a clinical psychologist. Okay, so the pathway from a bachelor degree in psychology to master in clinical psychology. After master in clinical psychology, then you become a clinical psychologist. In Malaysia, since 2017, we have a new act, and the act is called Allied Health Professional Act, but it is just being gazetted recently. Yeah, it is just being gazetted recently in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, 2020 or 2019 July. Yeah, being gazetted. So now, under a Light Health Professional Act, we have about 23 profession. At the moment, 23 profession. Previously, 27 profession. And few profession drop because it's not easy to make legal documents. Yeah, and act. Yeah. So now, we have council member of this 23 profession of allied health professional. So the role of this council member of allied health professions, including clinical psychology, are discussing among them on how to start allowing the practitioner to register themselves. Yeah, to register. We clinical psychologists after this need to register ourselves with the Ministry of Health, because the Ministry of Health is the one who govern the act. Okay, and after we register ourselves, of course involve some money, yeah, registration, reviewing some documents, yeah, then we can practice. Then we can call ourselves as a clinical psychologist in Malaysia. Licensing is another story. Registration, different. You just register because you have masters in clinical psychology, then you can register. Yeah, and then licensing is a continuous pathway. After 2 years, you need to renew your license. After 2 years, you need to renew again your license to show that you are always being updated as a scientist practitioner. If you have heard the word CPD, continuous professional development, in medical we call CME, continuous medical education. Yeah, so we need to always update ourselves with knowledge, with new research, in order to allow us to be licensed. But at the moment, we are even yet to be we are even yet to do the registration part. Okay, so in Malaysia, even I myself are not registered yet under a Light Health Professional Act because it's yet to be open. It's not because it is not because I'm quack. It's because it's yet to be open. Yeah. And then after a few years, we are going to have that licensing part. But at the moment, we have under clinical psychology, we have one professional body called Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology. So under Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology, this is registered under ROS. Yeah, ROS is apa? Allahu Akbar. ROS something about registration of society. Registration of society. So these are not a regulatory body, but they are a professional body. So I register myself with MSCP, Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychology, and I would like to show to you the video pula, the website. Yeah, the websites. Are you able to see uh, the website of the logo is Malaysian Society of
Uh,
Clinical Psychology? Are you able to see that?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Okay.
yes,
Okay, and you can see that clinical psychologist directory, right?
yeah.
Okay, so you can see that these are the registered clinical psychologists in Malaysia at the moment with MSCP, not with Allied Health Professional Act. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can see that my name there, CP1-0033, Dr. Jamila Hano binti Abdul Karim, Psychology. Government, CBT, blah blah is my treatment modalities. And then I put down my extra information lah. Yeah. Okay. And then you can see that the full member. I'm a full member. At the moment, under this clinical psychologist directory, about mm, we have about 300 full member of clinical psychologists at the moment. So you probably would like to go to this MSCP website and look around on how to become a clinical psychologist. There are information on how to become a clinical psychologist, and also who are our clinical psychologists in Malaysia. Yep, I think have I answered the question? All right.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamila, for such a. That was, I think, the briefest way of explaining how to become a clinical psychologist in Malaysia. So let's go to Brother Saiful without further ado. So the question is, what are the skills that are needed for psychology students to be highly higher in the job market? It is a very important question, and I'm sure Brother Saiful must have a lot of things to say for the question. Please proceed.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Thank you for asking very good questions. But yeah, of course, I would say that most of the answers that I'm going to share with all of you, basically what I obtained from the recruiters out there. All right, number one, you should be lucky lah, for all the UIA students, because for them, they told me that, Saiful, for us, IUM student, you are the best English speakers compared to all the other public universities. Okay, so that become a very good selling point. But they always say to me, but please remind your students, if I were to have 5 UA students in front of me, all the 5 can speak English so well. So normally they can compare dengan several universities lah. If I were to have, katakanlah nama universiti ni ABC University, if I were to have 5 of them, only one can speak English well compared to UIA. But the problem with UIA, all the 5 can speak English, but they couldn't speak their mind. They couldn't deliver the idea, and they are so humble unnecessarily. So at the end of the day, we got no idea from them. Be humble is okay, it's nice, but too humble is a problem. The other you see ABC you see, only one can speak English. The four are all broken English. But at the end of the day, Saiful, don't surprise, we may take this broken English. Why? Because we believe English slowly, gradually, you're going to improve. But there's no time for us, a big company, to actually work on your self-confidence, right? So speaking about the business model, English, communication, the interpersonal skill is a must. But I would love to actually share more to all of you about what seems to be the needed skills. Don't give up with the first round that I mentioned about the psychology. The opportunities for the psychology graduate in the market. For your information, they just don't realize. So it's something that very, very important for you to make sure that they realize the significance of having you in the organization. But mostly, trust me, don't be so proud lah, aku psychology student, macam mana pun aku nak position ada nama psychology. No, it's not going to happen. Sometimes the strategy is just enroll to that particular company, be with them, just deliver and perform the best that you could, but slowly you give the different idea from the different perspective. It shows that you got different wisdom, and it shows that yes, your psychology background makes sense, and they're going to assign you with the neuro to be more specific according to your degree. Basically, just like that. Okay. Now, speaking about skill in general, I would say different position has different skill set. So, how to make sure that you be employed, you are marketable, you need to study. It's not so difficult. Allow me to share you this. Okay, how to do that is so easy. You just go to whatever the big career portal. It could be JobStreet, it could be LinkedIn. You just click to the job. All right, so you go to the position that you wish to be. For example, HR executive. Okay, why we use the term executive normally as a fresh graduates, pegawai. Pegawai ni we called it officer, we called it executive, or some company they call it associate. Okay, it depends. Or some call just junior officer. All right, so this will be one of it. For example, which one we like to click? Yeah, here. Looking at the job description, you need to actually study about the job description here. Understand what are the things that they really want you to perform, and this is what we call as the keywords. So you have to make sure that these the keywords need to be appeared on your resume. Okay, at least indirectly. Okay, so you can check on other different company. They have a different requirements. Okay, yeah. For example, for the big companies, normally a more explanation about specific skills and competency that they want you to deliver. All right, so that's number one. The second one, what you need to actually do here is actually to study more about the prospect of the job market. So I wish that you actually learn about the statement or whatever forum, whatever videos, whatever article produced by the World Economic Forum. It is something that very, very important. So basically, the World Economic Forum, they study uh, all the industries. They try to do survey across all the industries. What are the new skills needed to support the current industry? But if you look at that, okay, we focus the center column, the trending 2022. Ini yang susah nih untuk kita bangunkan. And sometimes, you know what, some students, they don't care about that. They just go for studying, and then when they reaching to the final year ataupun completing their degree, and then they started to think about, okay, I got my resume, main hantar saja. They don't know actually what are the skills needed. Okay, if you can see that 2018, 2022, and what are the things that may be declining in the 2022, is quite dynamic. It's quite dynamic. And for the current business model, you can see that analytical thinking is something that's so important. So you need to be more analytical. This is something that you need to sharpen in the class. So whatever question ataupun whatever lesson that you learn in the class, when your lecturer asks for any question, please open your mouth, ask a question. These will be the things that they're going to assess you guys. It's just a simple one. for the big companies, for several positions, sometimes we call yeah, normally management training program. Sometimes the level of screening, it takes 7 stages. It's not just simply go for the interview lepas tak. The normal one is basically online test. There are so many people, so many candidates, they pass the online test. They just check your general personality, your general IQ test. But this one, normally there's so many people made it. But when it come to the second level, normally they group you into, yeah, several people in the groups. Okay, so normally they give you cases, they want you to solve, they want to see, assess you, observe you how you work in a team. So basically these are the things that they're going to see. Okay, so different companies have different assessment, by the way, but these are the things that you need to deliver. All right, and speaking about the skills, this is something that you also need to understand. Speaking about the business model, here is what I obtained from the internet, speaking about the gig economy. But let us focus more about the Indonesia, China, and India. Okay, if you notice, even our neighbor from the Indonesia, um, a more Indonesian, yeah, among youth, even kids, they started to develop their own channel, YouTube channel. All right. If you're looking for any tips from the YouTube, you're going to find there's so many YouTubers from India, from Indonesia. Okay, this is something happened to them. You know what? Graduates out there, for example, they just imagine only 40% able to get a job. The rest, you need to be entrepreneur. You need to be gigster. Okay, you need to create your own job by using your degree. So you need to also have this in mind. Slowly Malaysia go towards this. If you don't believe me, okay, go ahead and check this company, okay, this agency is under government agency, Magic. What they are going to do here is actually they're going to train people on how to be social enterprising. So there are certain skills that they want you to develop. They're going to upskill you in making sure that you become a job creator. You can go actually check also in the Google, for example, what are the top startup in Malaysia. You may know about it, or you may know not heard anything about them, but just have a look. For example, this one quite popular. So you can see simply see how this company kadang-kadang tak popular startup. Dia punya staffing pun is quite small. Some of them even having less than 20 staff. But you see how they are making money. Okay, and for your information, more and more youngsters in Malaysia now they become millionaire. All right, so we about to follow what happened in the United States. If you're looking at the United States, there's so many millionaires from the age of 20 to 30 years old. Okay, so you're going to see and look at what are the things that they are doing. All right, so another skills that I want to show to all of you is about um yeah, about this. I asked so many students about how far you know free courses, online free courses that available in the market, but not so many of you know about that. So the moment you are making your resume is quite common. Speaking about the computer skills, there are so many students or graduate, they spell about Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel. I'm so sorry, no offense. But sekarang ni, disebabkan COVID-19, budak-budak darjah 3, darjah 2 pun dah terror words, PowerPoint. So, you at the UC level, do you expect company feel wow when you write Microsoft PowerPoint? Please, you need to go beyond than that. In the internet, for example, Coursera, during the COVID-19, till December 2020, they're making so many free online courses for free, but still just limited lah. For Coursera, you can also go to Udemy, but for your information, under LinkedIn Learning also, there are numbers of free certification. So speaking about skills, the soft skill is quite common. There's so many people mention about the soft skill, but you can find that more and more graduates, they're quite good in terms of the soft skills. But what seems to be the selling point on how to make sure that more marketable compared to the other candidate, digital skill is a must. I wish that some of you even make friends with your fellow friend from the KICT to help them develop program. Okay, so you can see this, that for example the Google has announced they want to disrupt the college degree. Some people think this is something that impossible, but some people think this is something possible. But of course, this is something possible actually. Eh? They claim that actually the new stuff that they took for working for Google, still they need to do upskilling program. So they're saying that go to university is just wasting their time. So at the end of the day, they need to upskill, and at the end of the day, they say that why not you just go straight away to their academy rather than go to the university. So these are the things that perhaps become a big challenge also to the higher learning institution. But for your information, it depends to the skills. There are some people they say that okay, inshallah, psychology is not being affected. Okay, but trust me, there's one HR conference I attended. This conference with number of HR people there. You know what? This one presentation made by one IT expert. So he told the members, you know what? One day we don't need psychologists to do assessment because it's a boring thing. You know, they try to convince all the HR people. Normally, when you are recruiting people, you always ask them to do online tests, right? With the online test, it gives you result, right? Why not we as a software engineer, we as a programmer, we offer you new thing. Don't take the all the psychological tests. It's wasting your time, wasting your money. Phew, I was so shocked. Oh, how come he said like that? You know what? We offer you gamification which can actually assess the IQ, okay, IQ, the EQ, okay, and some other part of psychological traits and sebagainya through gamification. See, and if you don't realize about this, you know what? Our KICT kuliah, these are under the dean, Prof. Wahab. He made a collaboration with KPJ in Pasir Gudang. Study about eye movement to understand about autism and something. And actually, under IT, currently they try to work and ask collaboration with the SkyMap more about AI related software development on how to actually tackle psychological related issues. You know what? So speaking about skills, I want to make it short. Actually, skill is something that quite dynamic. It depends on the position, but it depends also to the time. It depends on the time. Don't be too conventional. You need to fully aware. Time change, everything change. Skill also need changes. I think that's all to cover the second round. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, Saiful. That's really true. It's more of the status quo. We cannot deny that different sectors would require different set of skills. But at the end of the day, there was one word that you used just now earlier in the earlier part where you said UIE students, they're good in English, but apparently they're too humble unnecessarily. Well, I think I've seen that before, and I guess I don't know. Maybe we can take something from that. I guess so. Okay, let's continue with the third part of the forum for today. So I was asked by the organizer on the question: is it better to pursue your master's degree after working, or you should pursue your master's degree right after graduation? And are there any pros and cons of continuing? Well, it's very opinion based, and this is my own opinion. Really short. A lot of people might disagree with me, but I actually could only say on behalf of my own experience. So I started after graduation in June 2015. I continued working in CFSIUM. So after 2 years and a half, I continued my master's. The difference I saw was number one, I think throughout the years of working, it helped me prep in terms of professionalism, and also in terms of being able to withstand, I don't know, pressure. I think so. When I continued my postgraduate studies, it was more of being prepped during work at the workforce and continuing with a different mindset. However, there are also cons to it, right? Similarly, I have also friends who are fresh graduates and continued their masters right after, and it's something that it's the best of both worlds. It really depends on how you view the experience, and most importantly to me, it doesn't matter whether you continue right after graduation or after you've worked for at least a year or a half. It's more of your attitude. If, for example, you have a bad attitude, regardless whenever you continue your master's degree, you would not go far. But if you have an attitude where you want to learn and you do not mind being criticized, being corrected, you respect your lecturers regardless of your age and your experience, then I think it will be a smoother path for you. Okay, so let's continue with Dr. Jamila. So the question is, can you tell your experience as a clinical psychologist and also a clinical psychologist lecturer? And can you explain the pros and cons, like for example, the challenges in both of the environments? The floor is for you, Dr. Jamila.
Thank you, Sister Sophia. Both of them are using a very nice word. But the word that I heard from my colleagues out there, universities, IUM students are good in English, but they are timid. So Brother Saifuriza and Sister Sophia use a very nice word, humble unnecessarily. But my friend said that why your students are timid, yeah, Hanom? And these are not undergraduate students, yeah, even master students. I think we are so worried to make mistakes. Yeah, we are so worried to make mistakes. We are so worried about other people's perceptions on us, and up to a point that it's better for us to keep silent. Unfortunately, yeah. As we have heard and listened from Brother Saiful, if we do not protect our own speciality, other people are going to take away that from us. As a psychology student, we should know what is the meaning of IQ test. What is the meaning of IQ? And how does people develop IQ test? If a software engineer is able to do that and say that we can assess IQ, ask them, what is IQ test? What is IQ? Speak your mind. Psychology student, you have been trained at least for your batch psychological assessment, at least one course. When I was a student, I've been trained in two courses previously. Yeah, so speak your mind. Ask, what do you mean by IQ? It's very interesting when you say that you can assess IQ from gamification. What does it mean by IQ there? Ask people, yeah, or otherwise people will open their mouth and talk about a lot of things, and sometimes it's incorrect. But unfortunately, we allow that to happen, and we victimize ourselves and other people in this world. Okay, now I become motivator pula. Let me answer the question, yeah. So, about my experiences as a clinical psychologist and also a clinical psychology lecturer, it is so nice to be considered as a clinical psychologist. But for your information, when I was my experiences previously after I did my degree in psychology, and I was sponsored by Petronas. Yeah, I was a Petronas scholar, and I worked with Petronas about 2 years as HR, admin, and executive. But I could not see or sing the value, my value and Petronas value, or my boss value lah quote at that time. Yeah, and I was young, and I was being offered a position as assistant lecturer. Assistant lecturer. That was the position being offered to me by IIUM. And as an assistant lecturer, IIUM was so kind, sponsoring me to do and continue my study in Melbourne University for postgraduate diploma in psychology, and then my master's in clinical psychology at UKM, and then IIUM and also Ministry of Higher Education again very nice sponsor me for my PhD was not in community health, Sophia. My PhD was in psychological medicine under UPM. Yeah. So
Oh,
the
okay. Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. IUM website, they did not update my
That
yeah.
explains. Okay.
So
Okay.
my I register in community health, but then I changed my program to PhD in psychological medicine. So when I came back to IIUM after my masters, after I've done with my masters at UKM, master in clinical psychology, I came back to IIUM as a lecturer. Yeah, as a lecturer, and then I taught for about one semester, and then I went back to become a student at UPM and doing my PhD for another 4 years, and then I waited for viva, pumpang blah 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 blah, and then I was being appointed after that as an assistant professor. Yeah, as an assistant professor. In other words, I am an academic. Yeah, I am an academic with clinical psychology background. And as an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology, I am different from my colleagues in the kuliah of medicine, such as Dr. Nazira. Yeah, my colleague, a clinical psychologist in kuliah of medicine under the Department of Psychiatry, even though she is an assistant professor, she is being reappointed by SASMEC, formerly known as IIUM Medical Center. Yeah, she was being reappointed as a clinical psychologist. So my colleagues at at the kuliah of medicine, they are an assistant professor, and also they are being reappointed as a clinical psychologist, and also and some of them psychiatrists being reappointed as psychiatrists or clinical psychologists at SASMEC. So they are clinical academics. In other words, uh, if I compare these two academic line, yeah, if I am in kuliah of medicine, I will be asked to have like 1 or 2 days clinic day at SASMEC. But because I am in Gombak under the Department of Psychology, we have teaching clinic. And teaching clinic, if you know psychology services unit, yeah, that is our teaching clinic, where during short semester 3, I am going to wear a hat as a clinical supervisor in supervising my master student. Yeah, seldomly I see clients. Seldomly I see clients because most of my roles and responsibility as an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology is number one, teaching, supervising, conducting research, writing publication, involved in consultation and community engagement. Yeah, so that is my role. So when I see client is because I want to see client. In order to make sure that I will not forget my skills as a clinical psychologist, because I know how can I teach Shamil Sophia if I don't continuously upgrade myself as a clinical psychologist. Malu lah I. It's a shame for me lah. For me. This is my opinion. But I seldomly see a client, and I am quite selective in getting a client because that is not part of my roles and responsibility. And when you say that, what is the difference? Tell your experience as a clinical psychologist. Clinical psychologist is a practitioner. And if we become a clinical psychologist, our bread and butter is doing assessment and intervention. Yeah, doing assessment on our client and intervention, and then sometimes we do some advocate. Yeah, we need to do webinar, and sometimes if we are both clinical psychologist and also an academic, then is a mixture of I should have 1 day clinic, serve my client, do assessment, do intervention, but at the same time I have teaching day, I have research day. So this is what we call clinical academics, and normally clinical academics are located in a university hospital. Yeah. And what is the pro and cons? being a clinical psychologist and a clinical psychology lecturer? Well, to become a clinical psychologist, you just need master's degree. It's not just lah. At least you can register yourself as a clinical psychologist in Malaysia with a master degree. And after that, you can serve the community as a clinical psychologist. That's it. But if you want to become a clinical psychology lecturer, all universities in Malaysia now needs you to have a doctoral degree, be it in PhD or psychology doctorate degree, Psych D. Yeah, these are two different pathway. PhD are more on research. Psych D, it focus more on clinical component and smaller part of research. Yeah, uh, that is Malaysia pathway or Australia pathway lah. But if you go to US, they have PhD in clinical psychology. Then that PhD in clinical psychology, the research component is also big and the clinical component is also big. You need to be in a clinical setting for at least 1 year while doing your data collection. Yeah, so US has different system. PhD in clinical psychology. Yeah, but Psych D is like an extra pathway after you have. It is like a combination of 2 years masters plus 1 year research. That is Psych D. Okay. So what is pros and cons is very much depending on you lah. Whether you like to become an academics or you like to become a practitioner. So if you like to become an academic, then you go to the pathway of clinical psychology lecturer, or in certain hospital you can become a clinical academic. But if you really love to see your client from 8 to 5, then you become a full-time clinical psychologist. Okay, so I think that's all lah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jamila. That is so true because I also have other course mates who would prefer to become a lecturer, but a clinical psychology lecturer. Having said that, she continues with her master's first in clinical psychology and is planning to continue PhD. So, to all psychology undergraduates out there are a lot of choices that you can make, but choose the one that you think would fit you the best, inshallah. So let's continue with Brother Saiful. So the question is, why is it important to have a psychologist for every organization or company, and is it better for them to have a psychology background or be a certified psychologist for the job?
Okay, thank you, Sita Sama Sofia. It's a very good question, but before that, I think I would love to give some feedback with regard to the question between master and job, which one we need to go first. So it's quite common questions lah. Normally from the students, and they're about to decide, their future undertaking, which one better. If you were to ask employers out there, normally they're going to give the same answer, mostly. Okay, but for me, there's no right or wrong, but you need to understand what's happening out there. So normally, if I were to ask companies, recruiters, mostly they're going to say work first, and then they're going to give a justification for that. The justification is basically in the real organization out there, there are not so many requirements need master level. They just degree level. That's all. And they're really concerned about your age. If you were to go to your master, now the first job is around 28 years old, for example. Kalau you lambat-lambatkan lah, if you postpone the job hunting, and for example, you got master, and then the first job 27, 28, this is going to be liability for you. Why? They say that, why I have to take you with master, but I'm not going to value your master, but now you are 27, 28. I just need the 23 years old. Okay? I'm younger than you. And you know what? Out there are so many companies, they're quite judgmental. You are so sorry about that. They're quite judgmental. You think about, you are 27, 28, then you get married, and then you're pregnant, then you need to have a long apa lupa nama cuti bersalin ni, confinement, is it? Yes. They just judge
Maternity leave.
maternity
Ah,
leave.
yes, yes.
They just judge you badly, and then they're going to imagine you going to managing your kids. These are the things happen. So if you were to choose for master, it's okay, it's all right, there's no right or wrong, but please make sure you know with what you're going to do with the master. Don't simply go for master because you run away from the problem, just because this is a short-term solution, because you are so stuck at home and so many people asking buat apa, tak cari kerja ke apa sebagainya, you're so stressed out, you go for master. No, if you go for master, make sure you know what the purpose of taking the master, and your thesis is something that very important. Don't just blindly choose wrong topic. It's so important because your thesis at least justify your expertise. Okay, so consult your lecturer is something that very important, and get to know what are the current problem, because you're going to give solution to the market. All right. So I love also the reminder given by sister lagi Dr. Jamila Hanno, speaking about the psychology graduate. You need to stand out. You need to actually defend your specialty, because out there are so many people are actually over marketing. They do over marketing. So with this question, is it important or not, and is it important to have the certification or not? It depends. For your information, there are a number of companies, they really need certification, but they're not going to hire. But you can become their locum or freelance counselor or freelance clinical psychologist. This is the truth. They're not going to hire full-time clinical psychologists. They're not going to hire full-time counselor. Why? Because they just want to show a good image. We don't need a counselor because all of us productive. We work happily. We don't have a problem. But actually, they do hire as a local, as a freelance, and they pay you a lot of money. One session sometimes costs you 1,000 just for 2 hours. Sometimes 1,500 for 2 hours. So with this, they really want to see your qualification. The more certification that you have, the big money that you're going to bring. Okay, real story. They're not going to hire, but they pay you for services that you're going to actually charge them. Then, and they actually acknowledge, but they don't want to show to the other competitors. No, it's all about business. They don't want to show that they are having counselors. But the problem here with the people who actually not having strong background in counseling or psychology, they just do marketing, they do all this pseudoscience. You know what? They claim with so many certification that so impressive lah. Antaranya NLP, for example. And you can see there are so many organizations, there are so many companies out there. They do inviting, okay, organizing number of trainings with the trainers who claim certified master trainer, okay, apalah level, macam-macam level, but it's basically pseudoscience. So that obviously reflect they are not really concerned about that, and they got no idea. Basically, it's not about they don't concern, they got no idea. They don't know which one is genuine, which one is pseudo. Okay, so the answer is it could be yes, it could be no. But speaking about how far they really need, again, as I mentioned earlier, they really need psychologists to be under the organization, but you need to explain that why. But Alhamdulillah, I would say currently more and more companies open up their eyes, having a new perspective. For example, there are some big organizations currently, they are celebrating mental health month program. Trust me, they started doing that. Okay. And then there are some companies, if not mistaken, their recruitment under under HR, definitely they hire some psychologists who really good in testing. Bear in mind, testing is something that very, very important. Many years back for the psychology department, I think if not mistaken, we got two courses, two subjects. But these days, I'm not so sure. But everything that actually got two subjects is so important, including statistics. Statistik ada satu ke dua sekarang?
With the new study plan, this batch have only one statistic. Our
Yo.
batch dulu kan ada applied kan, experimental
Yes.
lain.
So
So
whatever
we are currently reviewing. We are currently reviewing the study plan.
actually when we are in the market, we started to realize lah, whatever yang two subjects tu, it's so important, really important. Okay, if not mistaken, ada satu I tak boleh declare lah sebab ni ada public ada kat YouTube pun. Ada satu bank, they even hire psychology, but they believe with the graduate daripada overseas lah. You know, they having this UE punya lab. Dia ada UE lab, user experience punya lab. Trust me. UE, how they going to do? They develop their own system, website dan sebagainya. They call number of people, volunteers, to actually experience the new features, new interface, and then basically dekat bawah sana ada psychologists observing their behavior. And then this psychology is going to ask a lot of questions on how to actually improve their services. So actually the needs are there. Tapi slowly lah so we hope that more and more psychology graduates strong enough dengan you punya background. And for your information, during the interview, is a quite common question, what you could offer to us. These are the weaknesses among the so many candidates. You belajar psychology, when the company asks what you could offer, basically you start, you don't know what you could offer as a psychology graduates. It's our responsibility here is actually to make sure that they actually realize the importance or the significance of having psychology graduates in the organization. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you, Brother Saiful. From what Brother Saiful and also Dr. Jamila mentioned just now, I would like to conclude for that session is that you see, when you want to know, when you want to go apply for a job or after graduation, the root of the whole issue is you understanding what you're really doing. And you know, doing a degree is not merely getting a transcript at the end of the day. It's about understanding the core of the course itself, why you chose the course itself, how would the course help benefit you as a human being itself. You see, because sometimes nowadays we tend to focus too much on wanting to know which job prospect we want and so on and so forth, that we don't see in ourselves how we want to grow as a human being. So I think that's something that we can think about. So for the last...
Sorry, Sophia.
yeah.
Could I
Yes.
add on something that I think is
Oh yeah,
very,
sure,
very
sure.
important? I think is very
Sure.
important for your future. Mostly, currently, you guys having FYP, right? Is it compulsory?
I think it's compulsory.
And
Yeah.
now you have a LinkedIn. Many years back, we don't have this kind of platform. You know what? LinkedIn be used by so many professionals out there. So I would say it's your responsibility from now on, even your status is just a student, for whatever projects, for whatever lesson, and FYP is so significant for you to showcase. It's not show off. Showcase. You need to do a
True.
nice caption. You need to explain to the world why your project is so important to organization out there. Why are you bringing this kind of solution to them? So start showcasing. It could be LinkedIn, but the simplest version is actually IG. IG, yeah, it's in social media, by the way, but something wrong when I go to your IG, it doesn't reflect you as a psychology student, for example. You don't talk about human development. You don't talk about mental health. You don't talk about whatever relevant with your study. Tengok macam budak reke, ni apa kan? Tengok IG macam budak reke, tengok IG tak ada content, no. So you need to reflect what you have studied through the casual platform, but slowly, gradually, people start to open their eyes. Okay, that's all.
If I
Thank
can
you,
add,
Brother Saiful. That is...
if I is it okay
yes,
if I
yes.
can add?
Sure,
Because
sure,
again,
sure, sure.
um, I would like to add a bit more from what Brother Saiful has mentioned. I believe that it is not only FYP. Yeah, because our students, their coursework, their continuous assessment mark, they have been asked, because we have psychology day previously, those days, Jurassic days, can, when COVID is not around. We have psychology day, and we can see how our students able to showcase their ability on projects. Yeah, I remember that, for example, like because I'm a clinical psychologist, so, and I'm teaching clinical psychology, I'm teaching neuropsychology, I'm teaching psychological assessment previously. Yeah, so, for example, in clinical psychology, the assignment was to design a prevention program that is evidence based in order to reduce psychological distress and also to increase certain positive psychology construct, for example, like resilience, among certain population, and to test whether that the program that they design is effective or not. So we need to showcase and tell the world that I have done a module. I've done a module, a simple module, and I've tested and it's effective. So when you go out and work and people ask you what can you offer, I can develop a program for your employee. I can develop a program to increase their productivity, evidence based program, and I can show you how it's being developed and how we can test its effectiveness. You don't need to find other people or hire another consultant. You can hire me. You can hire me as your employee. So that is how we tell people that we are beneficial. All those simple things that you have learned in your coursework, if you are able to explain it to your grandmother, yeah, this is my supervisor word, my PhD supervisor word. If you are able to explain to your grandmother your PhD project, then it's worth it. It will be beneficial to the society. So speak in your IG about what you are currently doing. In my neuropsychology class previously, they do prevention program on traumatic brain injury, especially to the motorcyclists. So we are relevant to JPJ, for example, at least lah. Yeah, for that project. That is the thing that I just want to add
I
from my
see.
friend, Brother Saiful.
That's both the points were very, very true and very, very good. And I also learned a lot from that also, considering that I think nowadays it's not being a student, it's not only having to be critical, but you have to also be creative in whatever you want to pursue on, right? So thank you so much to Brother Saiful and Dr. Jamila for sharing earlier. So we've come to the last part of the forum before we open for the Q&A session. It's 4:38 now. So lastly, the last question posed to me was, what are some recommended places for internship? To be honest, since I'm not from a psychology background, I asked my friends, those who are from psychology, and they gave like a lot of places or examples like HR companies with HR, and also even kindergartens and many places, and even hospitals, NGOs, and so on and so forth. For clinical psychology itself, for masters, I would say that basically there we are sent to hospitals. We're also sent to. There are also some of my colleagues who were sent to NGOs and stuff. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't say whether I recommend it or not, but I would say that each placement would give you a certain set of skills. For example, I'm now in a hospital setting, so I learn how or I see patients, outpatients, but then I learned this set of skills. But then, if, for example, my other friend who is now in Sol's Health, for example, they would learn other set of skills, right? So both are equally important, and it would help in your development either way. So let's continue with Dr. Jamila's last question for today. What do you think about the rate of growth of clinical psychology in Malaysia? Do you think it is wide enough if more students pursue their masters in clinical psychology?
All right. Thank you, Sister Sophia, for the question. I would say that I don't have the statistics. But when we mentioned about growth, some statistical analysis actually need to be done to make sure that it is really exponentially growth. But based on my observation, I believe that it is growing because now more and more university trying to offer a program in master in clinical psychology and doctorate in clinical psychology because there are demands. And also in each university they cannot take too many clinical psychology trainee. So one intake, sometimes the most is probably 12 to 20, depending on number of staff that they have and the facilities that they have. Yeah, and for example, we have for the public university, we have UKM, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. We have UIA. We have now UPSI slash USM is in collaboration with. Yeah, that are the universities that are currently public universities that are currently offering master in clinical psychology. Yeah, and it's growing now. We have previously we only have help that offer master in clinical psychology, but now we also have University of Cyberjaya, formerly known as UCMS, and now we also have UCSI offering master in clinical psychology. Why this university are offering this program? Because the demands are there. The demands are there. But when we talk about makan gaji, when we talk about makan gaji, in other words, you are being, you are being appointed as a clinical psychologist either in public settings such as in Ministry of Health or in private settings such as in private clinic. Yeah, of course, the scenario is very challenging. Yeah, the scenario is very challenging. As far as I know, currently in public health setting, under Ministry of Health, recently, Ministry of Health opened 23 positions of pegawai psychology in bracket clinical, yeah, for master in clinical psychology graduates. But it is a contract post. It's a contract post. Yeah, 23 position. Even though 23 position, I believe that based on my conversation with the head of profession, it is yet to be filled up because number one, even though people need clinical psychologists, but based on the observation, based on the comments, the remuneration at the public health setting, yeah, at the Ministry of Health, the remuneration, the payment, yeah, is not that interesting, exciting, or enticing for our graduate. Yeah, and our graduate, some of our graduate willing to work in Singapore, in Dubai. Yeah, as a clinical psychologist because they are being paid higher. The remuneration are better. Work 2 years in Dubai and you can come back and enjoy your life in Malaysia, for example. Work few years in Singapore and then after that you can decide. For example, this is the thinking that I heard from some of the graduates at the moment if they don't choose to work in a public setting in Malaysia. Um, in private settings, sometimes you do locum as what as Brother Saiful Reza, inshallah soon Dr. Saiful Reza, yeah, um, has mentioned is about locum. You may work a few days in one private organization, private clinic, and few days in other private clinic. And I would like to say, I would like to remind all of us to learn being a social enterprising, regardless of you are clinical psychologist ke, you are IO psychologist ke, you are forensic psychologist ke, whatever lah. But social enterprising, being an entrepreneur is very important. And I'm so grateful that my parents allow me to work even since childhood. That definitely not a child labor. Yeah, they did not use my money. All money goes to me. Yeah, but at least I know the importance of being entrepreneur. And I always talk to Brother Saiful is Saiful, let's do this and this. Let's open a company together because people needs us. So probably at night or Saturday and Sunday, we just need to do 2 hours talk, 2 hours webinar, and people can pay us 6,000. That is the amount of money. Yeah, people call, for example, people call me to speak about something for half of the day, and the arrangement was, Dr. Jamila, you will be given 40%, 60% is given to us because this is our crowd. We are the organizer. You are the speaker. So we will, 60-40, for example, with, and that 40% for half day talk. I receive about 7,000 and I use that to sponsor myself to go to German and attend World CBT conference. So is a sustainable movement. Yeah. When we become entrepreneur, we become sustainable. So please develop that skill, regardless of the grow or decrease or whatever. Have a flexibility in our mind. Become more psychologically flexible. Yeah. Learn new things and grab opportunity and be mindful of that opportunity. Allow ourselves not to be so rigid. Yeah, if we are too rigid, it's a bit difficult to move around and learn new thing. Yeah, I have never thought that I will become a clinical psychologist. Yeah, I thought that I will become an applied developmental psychologist. That was my uh, aspiration previously, because I love children. I love children and I want to become an applied developmental psychology. But when I was invited to become an assistant lecturer, Professor Noraini, our previous lecturer, said that Hanom, they call me Hanom in the department, Hanom, um, we only have room for you to become a clinical psychologist. You want or not, you need to become a clinical psychologist. And as someone who just left the Petronas, yeah, do I need to make demand? I don't want Prof Noraini. I want to become an applied developmental psychologist. She don't care. She just asked me, you need to continue your study for masters and PhD in clinical psychology. So now choose. You want to go to which discipline? Okay lah. I choose this lah. And I develop. I never thought to become a clinical psychologist. When people say that, do you love clinical psychology? No, I don't fall in love with clinical psychology. I fall in love with my husband. So I have the opportunity to become a clinical psychologist, and Alhamdulillah, I think this is a nice pathway, and I accept it. Yeah, and after this, if I need to become someone else, it's okay too, because my job, my career doesn't define who is Jamila Hanom. My value define me. Yeah. So I hope that that answer whether the rate of growth is increasing or not. Yes, it's increasing. However, it's very challenging for you if you think to makan gaji. So be an entrepreneur, but be an entrepreneur who are ethical and Islamic. Yeah, don't forget that. Don't involve in pseudo psychology. Okay, just for the sake of money. Money will come. Don't worry, money will come. Okay, thank you. That's all lah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jamila. That was a very powerful thing. When there were 2 points that I liked very much. When number one, Dr. Jamila mentioned the word psychologically flexible. That is really really important. And number two, the last part of Dr. Jamila's session just now, where she said our career does not or do not define us, but our values that define us. I think that is really, really important, because at the end of the day, it's not about who you are, what your job is, but rather your values that you bring until the end of your life, right? So let's go on to the last part, the last person for today's session, Brother Saiful. Inshallah, Doctor. Inshallah. So the question is how to reduce job anxiety from not feeling secure with your job in this era of pandemic.
Right, thank you. It is a very good question. We can see that there are so many people actually out there, graduates, they're so frustrated with the current market. Even some of them express this kind of thing in the LinkedIn. I discovered that. Okay, even social media, Twitter, we can see how far that graduates really concerned about the market, and it's quite struggling by the way. But how we're going to overcome this is something that very important as well. For me myself, I do admit that COVID-19 gave huge impact. It's not only Malaysian, it's a global impact. And the worst scenario, there are so many people put blame to the COVID-19. Trust me, okay? Don't focus so much about the COVID-19, but you need to understand what happened in the real job market, what happened in the current business model. Actually, the big challenge is not COVID-19. The big challenge is actually IR 4.0. There are so many jobs slowly become no longer relevant. Trust me. Okay. the business model nowadays change. Like what being mentioned by the Dr. Jamil Hanu just now. Yes, we don't want to say it, but to be frank to all of you, for the public sector, quite struggling in terms of the workload. Dr. Jamila Hanu mentioned just about salary, but actually workload, Allah. That's why there's so many people actually very difficult for them to sustain at the public sector. They may go to some other places with big money and more satisfaction. But Dr. Jamila highlighted something that very important point here is actually about the social enterprising. Yes. So how to overcome your anxiety if actually yeah, how to overcome your anxiety about the job market. The solution here is actually get to know. If you have a full information, you are ready. Trust me. The problem why so many people are actually afraid because they don't have information. And the big mistake normally done by the student because you're at your age, but your circle still among your age. Just imagine lah what we have for today. How many people actually looking forward to listen on career related matters? No, there's so many students they believe a career or job is a business that they're going to do, to focus, to give more attention after completing study. Okay, so basically you made a wrong mistake. Okay, sorry, you made a big mistake. Sorry. Okay, so let us understand about career development. Okay, career development actually happened ever since we were little kid. We couldn't remember specific age, but our upbringing really gave something to us, influence our direction, aspiration, developing our skills, developing our personality. So career development happened when we were little kids. So it highly influenced by information and the exposure that you went through. So how to overcome again, make friends, make circle with so many people who actually above your age. That would be better. Okay, make friends with somebody who actually work already. That would be better. Otherwise, your idea always remain the same among the students' idea, the students' perspective. Number two is actually exposure on how to actually overcome your anxiety, get a good exposure. You don't know what seems to be the best to you until you explore and you deliver or you experience it. Sometimes you just imagine you're going to be a good clinical psychologist, for example. If you were to have that kind of idea, just try to have practicum or you just listen to the people problem again and again, again and again. Not all people love to listen people's problem. Trust me, it need courage. Okay, tengok macam best kan, but not really. Maybe some of you incline towards motivator, not clinical psychologist, not counselor. Okay, do explore. When you're exploring, when you have idea, normally you're okay, you don't feel afraid because you know what's happening. Okay, so basically macam tu lah. I think I answer correctly. Okay, Sister Sophia.
Okay, thank you, Brother Saiful. Again, if you realize throughout the session today, we talked about a lot about career development. We talked about being socially enterprising, and these things are important aspects of our career development, especially in this day and age. And especially that, in conclusion, it's not, again, it's not about what brother Saiful said just now was really true. It's not about like being a clinical psychologist, listening to people's problems and so on and so forth. It's more than that, right? And it takes a lot of thought, a lot of courage to actually know and think about what you really want to do. Okay, so I guess now is the Q&A session. I think I have to pass the floor back to the organizers.
May I know how
Assalamualaikum
many
everyone.
people so far on the YouTube?
Yes, Dr. Jamila, it's 65
There,
people are still on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Good to know that they
Awesome.
are able to sustain themselves and listening to us.
No, it was a really nice session. We all are
True,
enjoying
true.
it, and it's very informative as well.
Thank you.
So the first question, the questions are already up. So I'm going to ask the first question, which is posted by Sister Aina. She asks, I was interested in social entrepreneurship. just mentioned by Brother Saiful before. Could I get further explanation on this? Should we apply for the training?
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So it's a very good question, and the market currently more about social enterprising because of what you're not stuck with all these public sector related policies speaking about employment, but it's actually give you more freedom to design what you want to give solution and how you're going to deliver your services and how you're going to actually deliver your business. So like I mentioned earlier, Magic, you just go to Magic. They are actually offering number of courses, by the way. Okay. But something that you need to understand, the current business model inclined towards digital related digital related things. So I would suggest you to actually make friends with IT student lah, especially from the computer science. Okay, because you know what, there's so many startup actually whatever services that they deliver at the end of the day you can see they're using digital punya platform, digital tools. All right, so this is the what we call the vital platform being used by so many businesses at this point of time. Maybe I can share with you a very simple one. Like, okay, one simple example. If you love kids, for example, have you heard about Kido Care? This is one of the startup. Okay, I don't know how they developed this, but um, the whole idea is actually, you see, for the parents who wish to go for something, okay, but you need somebody to take care of your kids, your baby. So you know what? Parent can actually hire for babysitter. And let me show you what's the price. Okay, you can go look at this, and basically the whole idea is actually to take care of baby, to take care of the kids. So see, this is example of startup. You can find that the number is not so many. Okay, the team members not so many, but behind it there must be somebody who really good in the IT. So there are few more examples, but just go Google and look at what are the popular startup in Malaysia, and go study, and basically, like I said, IT related. Okay, and look at to the Play Store. It's also give you some idea. Look at the Play Store, check whatever apps related to psychology. Okay, perhaps you also have the idea to develop the new system. You got the idea in terms of psychology, but you don't know how to develop the system. That's why I asked you to make friend with IT related students. So you team up. Okay, you team up. Sometimes you don't have to learn new skill because sometimes you start, you don't have the competency. But what you can do here is actually you make a new friend. You open new circle. Okay, you open your horizon and you open your new perspective. So there are so many people actually that just synergize to come out with the best product. Okay, that's all. Speaking about the social enterprising.
Thank you, Brother Saiful. The next question is by Brother Mustafa, and he asks, how do I become a counselor in schools or higher education? Can one of you provide a pathway?
I think
Okay.
Brother Saiful lah kan sebab Brother Saiful counselor.
Counselor at school is very difficult if you not enroll to the IPG or any education related degree which has a guarantee. But currently, under education, even they have two types. One guaranteed placement, the other one they are not guaranteed placement. So speaking about to be a counselor at school setting, I'm so sorry if you not enrolled to education related degree, or if you didn't enroll to IPG, it would be quite difficult. Okay.
All right, so the next question is also by Brother Mustafa, and he asks, I am in food services at the moment. How can my psychology background help with that?
Come again the question. Sorry.
I am in food services at the moment. How can my psychology background help with that?
Food
How?
services.
Yes,
Food
food
services and
services.
how psychology.
And how psychology can be relevant for food services.
Yes.
Yes.
So what is food? What is food services? Food services mean we are servicing food to people.
Brother
Because
Mustafa,
very
you
difficult for me for us to respond if we don't understand what is food services. Is it like F&B web in the is it in the hotel kind of thing? I I don't know what is food services. Unless Brother Mustafa can explain more on that, then probably we can think about something lah. While waiting for him to respond, probably we can have other question.
yes, sure. Uh, the next question is by Sister Amni. She asks, for Brother Saiful, what are his thoughts on the user experience UX industry as a field for psychology graduates to enter in Malaysia? Not much is known in the local market regarding UX.
Yeah. All right. Let me be frank to you. There are not so many big companies in Malaysia willing to invest for UE. UE stands for user experience. But as far as I know, there are so many banking sectors, banking, finance related companies. They are actually investing towards this, and they're having a certain position for that. Okay, so if you're looking for Malaysia setting, number one, as far as I know, banking setting. Number two, it's quite related also. You know what? Actually, Malaysia, particularly KL, we become the hub for BPO related industries. And speaking about BPO, customer service is become what we call it. Customer service has become quite popular. There are so many vacancies for customer service related positions. So UE also being used for certain company who actually having a big money to setting up the UE. But if not mistaken, also for the electronic or IT related, also for example, Microsoft, I think. But Microsoft in Malaysia is different from Microsoft in Singapore. Microsoft in Malaysia is more towards the education. So as of now, what I could answer to you is more about banking, as far as I know. Okay, sorry about that.
I think if I can add, Proton, one of our graduate, um, become a seat trainee, if I'm not mistaken, for Proton, and people know that uh, he has a degree in psychology, so he was invited to design a cafe in Proton, a cafe for Proton staff, with the element of user experience as well. So in terms of ergonomic psychology and whatnot, yeah. So I think big people are moving towards that lah. People would like their employee to feel nice at the workplace. Uh,
But what I would like to add on also, Dr. Juliano, you know what, as what we mentioned earlier on, there's not so many companies aware about that. So that's your role and responsibility to explain to them during the interview. At least quite close with the UE is actually business development position. So when you actually explaining your strength in terms of the psychology background, at least they may offer you position at the business development, not UE exactly, but business development is also quite relevant to the UE. Like at least you tell from the psychology perspective how they actually need to design things that can empower their sales. I give you example. Okay, the psychology of color. Have you noticed McD, KFC, Mary Brown, and so many F&B? Why they setting up their restaurant red or orange color? Why not pink? Why not green? Only Subway lah green. Why mostly using red? So that is our job as a psychologist, actually to tell them the red color increase the appetite to eat. You can do your own experience, like experiment. You take a burger, for example, you put with the red cover, how you look at the burger, and then you change the cover to the brown, and then you change to the green, you change to the blue. How you going to actually experience things when you change just the color, but the burger remain the same? Okay, so at least for the business development department. All right, thank you.
All right. So the next question is by brother Muhammad Arifuddin. He says, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to ask about the general job description and roles of being a psychological officer in Malaysia at certain organizations such as prison, rehab facilities, and such.
Well, job description for psychology officer at prison. I don't really know the exact job description, but as far as I know, some of my friend who become a psychology officer at the prison, they provide counseling up to the prisoner. They provide or they do some advocating or program in relation to things that can improve mental health status of the prisoner. Things like that lah. Uh,
Okay,
so yep. So probably Brother Saiful can apa ni can add more lah on that.
okay, thank you, Dr. Mulano. So actually, for you to work under government sector, under public sector, no need such a job description lah. Because normally you go for SPA. Have you heard about SPA? Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Awam. Once you enroll to the SPA, you been given, if I'm not mistaken, you've been given a choice to choose bahawa KKM ataupun the other words they call it guna sama. That's the keyword. KKM or guna sama. When you choose for KKM, basically you're going to work under Ministry of Health Malaysia. So basically you transferable among public hospitals lah. Public hospitals. But if you speak about guna sama, what is the term in English? Guna sama ni. If you choose the guna sama, you transfer over numbers of ministries and agencies within the public sector. Yang itu yang tercampak pergi Kementerian Luar Bandar, tercampak pergi Kementerian Wanita, tercampak pergi JPA, tercampak pergi penjara. You not choose. Actually, they are the one who transferring you. Some of them without kerelaan pun. Okay, so that's different for the public sector. So basically, it's under SPA, but have in mind for the SPA, you just go online. And the problem with the SPA, they really need scroll. They're waiting for the convocation, not graduation. They still need scroll. There's a problem with JPA. Okay, let's say for example, you graduated in February, convo November. So you need to wait for the November for you to go to the interview, bring the scroll. That's the problem. And then study lah. You need to study what are the requirements for the SPA. Normally, the first is online test. Second, there are some other lah. There are 3 stages to 4 stages, if not mistaken, before they hire you as a psychology officer. Okay, so if you were to go to the prison, it's basically not because of your choice, it's what they decided for you.
Yeah, I think they have this online test, psychometric test, and then they will be called for interview.
Brother Mustafa has gotten back to us saying that he was talking about restaurant management.
So how does psychology be relevant in restaurant management? I think it's very related to Brother Saiful Reza elaboration on business development, how to make sure that your clients, those who come to the restaurant, will be coming again and again and have interesting, nice clients experience at the restaurant, so that it can improve uh, yeah the is either the productivity of the staff or improve the upper sales of the restaurant. So this is how a psychologist can become relevant in restaurant management or food services. we've learned a lot principles and theory in psychology, in terms on how to condition people's behavior, how to reward people's behavior. So for example, like in restaurant management, if they if our client customers come, how many times, and then how we are going to reward them so that we can make sure that they will come again. So I think that comes from the principles of conditioning, and that is psychology. That comes from me lah. Probably Brother Saifuriza would like to add more.
Yeah, actually, speaking about F&B and speaking about industries, there are so many industries in Malaysia, but they are not the same in terms of um, the professional body who govern this industry. I give you example. Economics, finance, accounting, and all these related, they actually governed by Bank Negara. So they're quite strong in terms of regulation and whatnot. Engineering, they got BEM, Board of Engineers Malaysia. Speaking about law, they got this, what we call it? Titi boleh lupa nama dia. They got a professional body lah, and basically this professional body actually they're implementing certain things which the industry or companies they need to follow. But speaking about macam F&B, I'm not so sure the body, but speaking about F&B ni banyak company kadang-kadang kecil-kecil. The small industry, SME. Speaking about small medium enterprise, dia tak follow apa-apa pun sangat. They do their own. So they may not need psychology sangat kat situ. But for the big company, for example Starbucks, yang besar-besar lah, they got name, got branding kan. I would say, I would suggest you to go at least the sales marketing related. Normally for the big companies, they ask you to go sales and marketing. You learn about how doing sales, you go meet customers, clients, receive feedback, comments, what actually they like about product, what they dislike about products, and then slowly go to the meeting, deliver the ideas, and then you move to the next level, more about the business development, move to the project management. That's how. So slowly you give your idea and tell them how significant your knowledge in psychology can really help them to grow their business. Tapi to be more specific, hire me as a psychology graduates who can actually empower your business. Memang tak lah selalunya. Okay, that's all.
Okay, the next question is, I tried asking if hospitals going to take psychology students as interns, but so far hospitals said that they do not need any. According to that, do we have any opportunities to work in medical fields?
Actually, we have MOA, Memorandum of Agreement with Ministry of Health. And for a bachelor degree of psychology, we can send our students there. However, the university need to pay. Yeah, the university need to pay in terms of the facilities that the students use. So when it involve payment, it's one thing lah. Yeah, whether university are willing to send students to the hospital or not. And another thing, sometimes depends on which department in the hospital that you ask. Yeah, so if one department may say that they don't need a psychology graduates, then you can try to ask other department. Yeah, some of the department goes to a psychiatric to psychiatric department, for example. Even though that you may not see, or you may not be dealing with patients directly, but you can help in terms of preparing the tests that need to be used, and then learn about on how to score the test and interpret the test. You can become the assistant psychologist in the hospital. So if one place doesn't accept, you try other places lah. It doesn't mean that you cannot go to hospital. If government hospital quite difficult to accept, we also have a university hospital, but just make sure that is there any payment involved, and then is there any MOA needed, memorandum of agreement needed, because for Ministry of Health, Ministry of Health, they uh, uh, we must have MOA, and when we must have MOA, not all hospital being allowed for us to send our students in. Yeah, but the best person to speak about this is definitely Dr. Hafizah lah, from the Department of Psychology, because she managed the UGIT. She knows better lah, basically. But Brother Saiful Riza, would you like to add on?
Yeah, I agree with your statement. Even currently, due to the COVID-19, it become more challenging lah.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Luckily, our master students are allowed to do their placement. So for undergraduate, probably the guidelines are more strict for them. Yeah, we need insurance and whatnot to make sure that our students are safe and secured. Okay, I hope that we have answered the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Jamila and Brother Saiful. That's all for the questions from my side. Sister, I think I'll pass the floor back to.
Okay, thank you so much. I enjoyed listening to the answers, and I also have learned a lot throughout the whole 2 hour and I think 20 minutes session. So, in conclusion, I would like to first thank PSYCSTA for the honor of being a part of the program for today. And I would like to also extend my gratitude to Brother Saiful and also Dr. Jamila for attending the program today, although it is in the afternoon on a Friday. And thank you to the 64. Just now I was on YouTube Live for a moment and I looked at the number of participants. I had 64 people. So I was like, oh, that's good. Like they have been watching throughout the whole 2 hour session. So thank you also to those who are watching. And I guess in conclusion for today, first and foremost is I learned a lot about social entrepreneurship. Yeah. And I also learned about career development. Last but not least, the advice to our psychology undergraduates out there is do not be afraid to venture in other opportunities and new opportunities. And I believe that if you would want to know how to kickstart your career, it will be fun. And I personally think you will learn a lot if you would want to meet like Brother Saiful at the CCSC and ask for advice and so on and so forth, and also from our lectures in the so I guess with that, I would like to wrap up the whole session. Thank you for such a blast afternoon. And I guess I see you next time, inshallah. Assalamualaikum. Thank you.
Sorry, before we um, before we close out this program, can we have a picture? Take a picture.
So, Atira yet to turn on the camera.
Okay.
I will take the picture and I will count 1, 2, 3. So have a big and happy smile. And so 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, last. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Doctor. Thank you,
you.
Brother Saiful. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sister
Thank you,
Sophia.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so for having me. Good job, Psychtstar. I think we need more program like this now in the future.
Congratulations, Saiksta. I need your help to promote on my study, and I would like to welcome you to the 7th Asian CBT conference. So please Google what is 7th Asian CBT conference. I'm the chair of the scientific committee, and also it's free
FOC.
of charge.
When, when?
FOC,
When? Dr. Jamila, no.
5th to 7th July
Oh,
2021. It's free of charge. We have Judith Bag, we have Aaron Bag, the founder of CBT. We have Steve Hayes, the founder of Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. We have so many great people, and this is FOC uh, and I think the PsycSTA has received my poster for my study to join my program, which is called I Act for Life. This program is a 5-week program that will share with you on skills, knowledge, and skill on how to become more psychologically flexible, have more and also become more self-compassion, become more resilient, and also able to manage your psychological distress. I know as a student, it's very challenging to learn online, so please come and join us, yeah, in this study. So hopefully other side staff who have the poster can share around the poster, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much for allowing me to promote my stuff.
No problem, Doctor.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
Assalamualaikum. Okay.
Salam.
Alright, I also nak promote jugalah kot. Currently because Tracer study is under please, I think it's had a meeting lah, mungkin masih bulan puasa ke. I think you guys need to know lah what happened to the psychology graduates. I got the statistic, kita boleh tengok 5 ke 10 tahun kebelakangan ni in term of the employability. How far budak psychology punya percentage. You all pun tak tahu kan?
No.
Saya pun tak tahu. Saya baru boleh access the system. I just got the study from the alumni. So we go to the system, macam-macam. But I believe this one memang dia tak boleh simpan dalam buku. No, we need to sit down. We need to find solution. How we going to help you? You need to know where the psychology graduates ni pergi. Are they doing public sector or they just do something else? Semua di dalam tu. We even can actually check their salary if not mistaken, the range of the salary. So we got the data. Alright. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Saiful.
Alright. Thank you, Assalamualaikum. Have a good
Salam.
weekend. Right.
To you too.
Yeah, no, see you around juga.
Yes, Brother
Alright.
Saiful. Okay, Michael.